Hey y'all, it's Brandon with Voodoo Forge. Now this year, 2022, I have been demonstrating in Granville, Tennessee. I have my business and run my shop, but I've also been going during festivals and weekends, a lot of weekends, to Granville, Tennessee, which is a small town in the edge of Jackson County, Tennessee. This is really an interesting, unique place. It is in the middle of nowhere, but they have taken several of the old buildings. They've restored one of the old store buildings and have music in there and plate lunches and a museum. Several of the buildings have been turned into museums. They have tours of a homestead, and there's the Pioneer Village, and that's where the blacksmith shop is. And in the Pioneer Village, there's a grist mill, there's a basket weaver, there's a car museum. It's like an old gas station, and there's weavers and wood burners, and they have a garden and all these old agricultural tools and things from the community, just pictures and relics, and it's just, they've really taken, it's taken several people, a lot of people, volunteers, and they're curating these pieces of history from that area. And they have tours when I'm demonstrating, and the other artisans are demonstrating there. And it's really neat. It's been a lot of fun. I teach a couple of classes there. Going to try to teach more classes next year. So while I've been in this shop with all of these neat local pieces, there's one thing specifically that I've been looking at for this whole year. And I've got it down and looked at it, and it's really my favorite thing in the shop. So I brought it home where I could film it a little better, and I want to show you this thing and explain to you why it's my favorite thing in the shop. This is the Granville Blacksmith Shop. This is an original bellows that came out of Lee Fox's blacksmith shop. I'm relatively sure the forge is a reproduction, and I don't think that's Lee right there. Here it is. I know, it doesn't look impressive, but let's talk about it for a minute. Now, first of all, the best I can figure, this was used something, pulling something with horses or mules. Probably logging. What I believe is you would hook this hook, or whatever it was you were wanting to pull, and then these chain hooks, you would hook to the harness on the horse or mule and pull it out of there. So that's what I think. I could be wrong. I don't really know 100%. I couldn't testify that that's what this is. But I can show you some of the cool things about this. I'm pretty sure that there are at least 4 distinct repairs on this. And I'll show you how I figured that. Now right here, this is a forge weld, and this is a forge weld. This, I believe, is of the original construction. It's forge welded together. And I'm pretty sure that this long twisted piece here is from the original construction. Now if you look at it, you can see this is a forge weld right here. And this is round material that was hammered slightly flat. So they hammered it slightly flat, they forge welded it, and made a loop, and then they twisted it together to make that piece. The one on the other side, the material was not hammered flat. It was not forge welded at one of the eyes, and you can see where it's been stick welded. Now, I think the chain hooks were made by different people or the same person, but at different times. And I will tell you why. They're hammer welded, they're forge welded here. But if you look, this material, this rebar, which is forged out of rebar, this diamond pattern of rebar became available in the 20s and 30s. I'm not sure if it would have been in Granville then, but that's when this became available. This type of rebar was later. It came along in the 40s and 50s. But the real kicker is, the reason why I think they were made by 2 different blacksmiths, is if you look at them, they're a different style. Like this one's drawn to more of a point. It could have been the same man who did it at 2 different times, but usually when I'm making something, I make it pretty close if I'm making it at the same time. So I believe these were 2 different repairs on this. And then we've got the hook on the end. Now this is forged out of some rebar that would have been available in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even to now. But it's clearly forged. You know, that wasn't ground. And as a matter of fact, it looks like they got it a little too hot in the forge right here because of the way it's pitted. Then we come to the back. This little piece of 1/4 inch stock here was cut with a torch, and these are factory made washers. You can see that this is stick welded on here. So I think that repair and the hook were put on at a different time. Now when you're looking at the lap welds on this thing, they are pretty rough looking. You hear a lot of people talking about the way the old timers did it, and the old timers didn't leave seams, and they tried to make everything look like it was factory made. This is not the case. I mean, this thing was built and used and repaired, and it was all done the quickest way they could do it to get it back in action. Just like repairs on equipment are done today. It's not always pretty. Sometimes they've just got to get it back to work. All the different repairs and types of steel that were used on this thing show that farming and repairing of equipment and things haven't really changed that much. They're still using what they've got just to get it back in action. So if you're ever on a farm or around a place where they work on equipment stuff and you notice all the random pieces of steel and what most of us think of as junk laying around everywhere, this is why. They never know when they might need it. Also the rebar. You know, most people would not use rebar for something structural, something that's being pulled like this. But this is what they used, and it clearly held up. So that's really interesting. This is not something that I would choose to use for this kind of repair. So this piece is part of the collection here at the Granville blacksmith shop, and it came from E.D. Eller, or Toddy apparently as he was known's collection, who was a local blacksmith. Now I don't know when this guy was a blacksmith, but you can see there's some pretty, what we think of as modern things going on in his tools that are up here. You know, there's some rebar handle. It's a rebar handle hot cut on the left, and then a rebar handle square punch. Maybe it's a drift. You know, galvanized pipe and bolts, and I don't know, what are those, stirrups? He's got there was a railroad spike knife in his stuff. That's not something we typically think of when we think of old timers, but that's just part of the collection here in the Granville blacksmith shop. Got a tire turner I'd like to have. This is the blacksmith shop itself, where we do our forging. So that's it, and I know it's not gonna be that impressive to a lot of people, and you know, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not even 100% sure what that was. I'm pretty sure it was used logging, like I said, but I'm not 100% sure. I am sure it's some kind of agricultural or work equipment, something being pulled with mules or horses. But just what I love about it is all of those funky repairs. And some of us get boxed in when we think about the blacksmiths, the old timers, the old school blacksmiths. You know, a lot of people get focused in on aspects of it, like the gates at the Biltmore, or swords and things like that. And it's these little mundane things that I love, that really show it as an everyday thing. You know, and that, you know, these little shops in Granville that did that kind of repair work and horseshoeing and making things, that really gives us our myth of the do-all blacksmith, you know, and that just wasn't always the case. You know, in cities there were very specific blacksmith jobs, but you know, a piece like this really just shows the ingenuity of some of these little small town guys. So I just wanted to share this with y'all. I hope you got something out of this and I didn't ramble on too long. But anyway, y'all behave yourselves.